Welcome to the UK Fantasy Football Show, Goal's weekly podcast that discusses many of football fans' favourite pastime. We'll be reacting to the results of Game Week 20, debating whether the Premier League title race is finished, and revealing our teams for Game Week 21. Dave and Sam are here for this holiday special podcast episode. Have you been gorging much on football over the festive period, or not?
Yeah, a bit.
A bit.
I did it most when Amazon had them all.
Yeah, bouncing around the channels.
Yeah, it's like there's just football everywhere. It's amazing. So I think it's been a good break for football, but not the Premier League.
No? Why is that?
It's over, innit?
You over the Premier League? You post Premier League?
Yeah. It's all about fantasy football now.
All right,
yeah,
okay.
That's what's keeping me alive.
But United are doing quite well. Man United are having a good little Christmas period. I mean, you blew it against Watford, but that was pre-Christmas.
Yeah. It's all. I'd class that as part of the Christmas period, though.
Right.
So yeah, you get spanked by them, and then.
You beat your mid-table rivals, Newcastle. To be fair.
Yeah, we did.
You did quite well there.
That was we announced ourselves to the mid-table there. We're not to be messed with. Then who did we play today? Burnley. And that was all right. They played some all right football. Martial scoring, happy days. But they were just, they're getting there. I mean, Pogba was amazing when the little cameos he's made. So I hope he may play on New Year's Day. Sorry. He looked like this world-class, one of the best midfielders in the world that we've heard about. I could easily see him not playing for the rest of the season though, and just tossing it off.
It's almost like he cost a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah. He had this big reputation. Won a World Cup, chancer. It was good.
Pereira's looked better, like a different player as well, hasn't he? To a degree.
I swear, every time I look at the TV and I see Pereira, he's fouling somebody. That's the only time I ever witness him.
I thought you liked that, Sam.
I didn't say I didn't. I do a bit. When you see him smash into someone, especially if it's a retribution challenge, you're like, go on, you nasty little git.
Yeah. Against Burnley as well, you like that because I think sometimes feel like the big teams are a bit too nice to what you would deem the smaller clubs.
Yeah, I was actually most pleased with Dan James against Burnley because he got
the new Ronaldo.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a terrible second half to watch because every 2 minutes someone was on the floor holding their ankle.
But he was getting smashed to smithereens, but then he'd go and smash them back. And tiniest player on the pitch. I was quite pleased to see that.
Love that.
I also enjoyed McTominay's yellow card about 15 seconds into the Newcastle game.
He just set the tone, didn't he? Set the tone. He said, we're not here to be messed about. This is our mid-table, boys. From a United perspective, it's been pretty good. They've won. They're 4 points off Chelsea now after they screwed it against Arsenal.
You're fifth now, aren't you? Doing quite well.
Yeah. Third is easily doable. You saw how easily Liverpool picked apart Leicester. Anyone can do it. That's the interesting bit. The league's done.
Did you see Everton Arsenal over the Christmas period? Which I imagine if you had never seen football or Premier League football before, and you were like, all right, I'm going to watch this game, early kick-off on the Saturday, 2 new managers, let's see how this is. It was one of the worst games of football I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
And to the point that I just didn't want to watch football the rest of the match day, the game week, because it was just so dire, no chances, no intention to score.
Is that because it's like 2 sets of players who don't want to do anything wrong for the new manager?
Basically, I mean, the managers weren't even in the dressing room at this point. They were both in the stands.
Yeah.
Ancelotti and Arteta, which we'll get onto a little bit later, but it just clearly 2 teams that would rather just wrap up for Christmas and get settled into the new manager, so it wasn't very fun.
It seems like there's been some decent games though over. I've only really caught up on the highlights because there's almost just like
you're so modern, you're just like the Reddit generation, aren't you?
There's just too much of it. Well,
snackable content.
I support a proper team, so I have to go to those games as well, you see, so I end up that's my football for and I've had enough of that really. So I've just kind of just caught up on there seems to be some great games in there, some good goals.
I was a bit gutted I missed City Wolves. That seemed like a blinding game.
Yeah, I missed that one as well.
But I caught up Liverpool Leicester, which was good, even if it was a bit one-sided. It was still a decent watch, I thought.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll touch on that again later if Liverpool have got the title race wrapped up, but they just look so good in that game against a team that were meant to be the main title rivals at this point. It was a dominant showing, in my opinion. How have you guys done on FPL points-wise over Christmas?
I've had quite a good one. I think last week I got 58 points, was it? 58 was, again, slightly above average. It was okay, and I think given the crazy rotation that was going on. I think it's benefited me more than it could have done. I could have been done ever quite nastily by it. Obviously, loads of people had Suunju, so that's fine. Loads of people had Vardy, and if anyone was going to be bunted out, I'm not that bothered about him because so many people have got him, and a lot of people have probably captained him. That I got away with it in that regard.
That's what you did, wasn't it, Captain Vardy?
Yeah.
And then you got very lucky in your vice captain, Kevin De Bruyne.
Oh, and this week just gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting those changes from Leicester. I didn't think Leicester really had the depth to start, making 9 changes.
He must just
take our top goal scorer out of the team. Chilwell was dropped as well, and he was in my side. So I was glad.
A horrible match for fantasy football players.
Yeah, I think that's why I suppose the average point score was 54, but at one point it was really low, wasn't it?
Yeah, it got up in the end because Mane and De Bruyne got so many points that I think a lot of FPL managers have those two. Abraham as well, someone who a lot of FPL managers had. He got plenty of points. It was quite a good week for me, actually. 68 points. Did all right.
Yeah,
Just
you
1
got
point above
68,
you.
didn't you? I got 67. Good week. Brought Calvert-Lewin in. The fancy good. Everton kind of.
Was that based on my recommendation of how well he looked playing against Man United?
Yeah, all my fantasy football changes are down to your recommendation.
Yeah, they're just 2 weeks too late. But no, that was well timed. Well done.
Yeah, no, he scored the week before, so I was like looking at Everton's fixtures, and I fancy a little upturn with them since Ancelotti's taken over. So he's like their point guy, really, isn't he? So I suppose Keane might start to get on the score sheet. Came close, I think, to scoring, but so that was good. And then obviously vice captaining De Bruyne,
you fluked it.
Helped.
One of the lads I know.
Well, it's not fluke though, is it? Because I vice captained him. So
when did you last choose a vice captain though?
I always choose a vice captain.
Do you?
Yeah, always. Every week. In fact, the only mistake I made recently was the week before where I didn't captain Vardy, and I was saying to you, wasn't I, in the office? I think consistently now I'm just going to leave my captain as Vardy, just so that as long as he's playing, just leave him in the team.
I've got a similar approach now, but with Mane, I just play it safe, captain Mane, rather than trying this person's got a good fixture this week,
Yeah, it was the week before actually where I captained Rashford instead, and he got 4 points, and Vardy got 9 points, so I kind of missed out on some points there.
I've had Kane as my captain the last 3 matches.
When did you sneak Kane in, by the way?
Before three games ago, I brought him in. So he blanked first game and then has bagged the last 2. I just felt that he hadn't scored for quite a while, and he was, as he settled into Mourinho's new system, he was going to come good, and he's like their only real striker, so he should play through the majority of Christmas period, and he will get goals because Tottenham are scoring.
They had a good run as well, didn't they, Spurs? Where against some teams they should be beating. I say should be because they've managed to botch it against Norwich, but I think they've got Southampton, I want to say, on New Year's Day. And again, I think that's away, but you would think that there's some goals to be scored there.
Yeah, and I've still got Ali in, bagged again. I've had Alderweireld in, and he's played every match, which has been great, but I don't think he's got more than 2 points.
Spurs' defence is so shoddy at the moment.
Yeah, well, in the last 4 matches, he's played every match, and he's got 3 points.
Overall?
Yeah, because they concede.
Gets a few yellows.
He gets a couple of yellows, so I need to redo him. I brought Yerry Mina in as well.
Everton have a good run coming up.
Well, yeah, but I brought him in for the immediate. And he's played every match bar one. He didn't play against Chelsea, which is probably banned. Play at Newcastle, new manager. We've got a clean sheet coming up here. Played 10 minutes.
10 minutes. That's unfortunate. But you are flying high at the top of the league still.
I am.
1,133 points. 33 points clear of me in seconds.
How many? Have I broken more than 100 clear of Dave yet?
Yes.
You are 109 clear of Dave.
That's my Christmas present. That's my Christmas present.
So Dave's got a target for the second half of the season.
Yeah, I'm still happily ambling along. It looks awful in this league, but I'm about mid-table in every other league I'm in. I think all the bigger leagues I kind of sit about mid-table-ish.
Not disgracing.
So I'm not disgracing myself. I want to push on now. I want to do better.
I've got into the I've just slipped out, but I was in the top 250,000 overall as well, which was ideally by the end of the season, if I can get to the top 100,000, that's what I'm aiming for.
Right, okay. At this point, you've cast us aside and you're focusing on bigger, better things.
I've gone global now, guys. I've gone global.
I like to think of myself as a Man United of this league, I suppose. I'm third in the top 3. Big teams.
Yeah, living on past glories when you were top on the start of the season. Yeah.
In the public UK Fantasy Football Show League, Sani Tolisso has been dethroned again by familiar team Goal, who has 1,245 points. So Sam, you were talking about edging into the top 100,000.
Jesus.
This guy is trying to edge into the top 1,000. He's in the top 2,000 globally, doing very well for himself, which is quite impressive. Listeners, you can join our league and test yourself against us all season long. The code to type in on the FPL website is NHC4WZ. There's also the FPL Cup to consider, which I won't lie, I completely missed until Dave mentioned it yesterday, because I think I got knocked out in the first round, and so it just wasn't coming up on my feed or anything.
I didn't even qualify.
How did you?
How do you not qualify?
Because I had a tepid game week. It was the game week when you became with like 9 points of catching me. And yeah,
well, surely that was the first round.
No, you have to finish in the top half of that game week globally to qualify, and I didn't.
Oh, get in. Check me out. This gets even better. So what I'm doing is I'm focusing on the cup now.
Yeah, you want some silver.
So even more like Manchester United, I'm focusing on something else other than the league.
It's game week 16. The average points was 54, and I got 51.
So you've won 4 match days now.
So this is my cup run here.
Oh wow, you won by 1 point there in the third week.
Yeah, it was a close match, but that's the cup for you, isn't it?
I tell you what, so every single match is close.
Lallana's in pyjamas by 3 points. So I'm into the next round against Gibbo.
Oh, Gibbo. Didn't have much luck with the Queen, did he? But
Game week 21.
I did see something on the FPL subreddit of when the cup season started, and someone asked the question: is it weird if I find out, if my opponent gives me enough sort of identifying information in their name that I sort of find them and say hi and it's good luck for the match? every single reply was, yeah, that's fucking weird, mate.
Oh my god. Oh dear, some people take it too seriously.
Maybe I should drop them a line and tell them the part of the podcast here.
Troll him, just like, got your fucking number, mate. Well, Dave, you can represent our UK Fantasy Football Show in the Cup.
I'm still in it, guys. I'm still in it. Although now I've realised I'm in it, I'll probably mess it up.
Yeah.
Overthink it a
It's
bit.
like some tin pot team from Estonia getting into the second round of Europa, isn't it? Come on! All of Estonia's behind you.
That's harsh.
Let's move on then. So this week, our big talking point is the title race. Pep Guardiola has declared it finished, done, dusted. He says Liverpool are champions. He says he doesn't want to, deflect from trying to get as many points as possible because he's worried about the top 4. But as far as he's concerned, Liverpool have won the league. So they're 13 points clear now with a game in hand. It is quite impressive. I mean, let's assume they win that game in hand because it's against West Ham and they're not the strongest.
David Moyes, West Ham.
David Moyes, West Ham, yeah. And you'd think at this point, would you say a hot take is that it's fair to say it's done?
Well, you've already said it about 3 times in the podcast.
Yeah,
Guardiola's a bit late to this.
Unfortunately so. I think feasibly 16 points. That's bonkers. There's a team City aren't firing. Leicester are a very good team, but they're not great. So you can't see them winning every single match to the end of the season now. And Liverpool just seem to win and win and win. It's not like they're blowing every team away 4-0, but they will, they squawk last minute wins. Like their first victory against Leicester, they got the penalty. It wasn't a penalty. It wasn't a penalty. That's annoyed me just thinking about that. But it wasn't there. But they got the penalty, scored it last minute to claim another victory.
The thing is, I expected if anything was going to shake their season, it might have been the Club World Cup. Coming back from that long trip and then this fixture congestion, but they've just come back and just been exactly the same team they were before they left.
Yeah, that intensity hasn't dropped at all.
Beating Leicester 4-0 and even beating a pretty tough Wolves team that beat Man City. I
mean, this time last year, I think it's fair to say they also looked in the ascendancy, didn't they? They looked strong. I think a lot of people were saying, they've got it wrapped up. Is it different this time of year? This season?
I think it's just a bit too big. Was it 8-9 points last season? around this time, and then January it all just fell apart for them very quickly. But if they went and lost 3 matches on the bounce now, they'd be what? Someone do the maths for me really fast.
It would be maximum 7 points.
That's still 7 points, and you're relying on City to win every single game. And City, they're still winning-ish, but last year they would never have lost against Wolves.
Yeah, City were better last year. I think that's the big difference here. I think Liverpool must feel like the pressure's off them. They're just totally relaxed in every game, aren't they? They know how good they are, and they haven't really got a proper contender.
They've just improved. Like, you look at the whole setup, player for player, they just look like a stronger team. I think it was against Leicester when I just was watching Alexander-Arnold and thinking, this guy is just incredible.
Yeah.
He had such a good game, and at this point it's hard to say there's a better right back in the world than him. And it's players like that who this time last year, they were very good players, but you probably wouldn't say they're the best in the world in their position. Now you've got players, 3 of the back 4 you could say are contenders for being the best in the world in their position. Their strike force is phenomenal. I think the one thing that could possibly derail them is an injury to one of Salah, Firmino, or can't even remember Mane now. But even then, they've got some backups who've proven themselves when they've come in, like Origi, like Shaqiri, but it's not the same level. So an injury crisis is probably the one thing.
I know, and I think everyone, me, was banking that they'd get tired at some stage through all the football, like Mane having a 13-month season, that they don't have amazing squad depth compared to their first 11, that they'd start to drop off, and they just ruthlessly continue at that same pace. You add the FA Cup in and then the Champions League coming back, that might make some difference. But as Dave mentioned, they've just gone to the Club World Cup and come back harder, faster, stronger.
That's, the squad depth for me, although they don't have it largely across the board, where they do have it is in midfield, which is probably the most important bit in terms of, or at least the bit that you would expect with their system that would get tired most quickly. They have at least 5 quality midfielders in there, and when they have had injuries to the likes of Fabinho, they have been able to adapt. Like, they have Ronaldo, Henderson, Milner, Keita, players who have come in and whenever they've asked to come in, and they've done really well. So I think that's kind of holding them quite steady.
Yeah, I think that was the main thing that made me think they really are the real deal. I thought they'd start dropping points left, right, and centre when Fabinho got injured, and they just carried on.
Yeah,
I think he's the best defence. After Kante, he's one of the best defensive midfielders in the world. He's just been an absolutely stellar injection into that team.
On form, this season he's better than Kante. But, yeah, longevity, probably a bit different.
Trent as well is the second most assists in the Premier League. So he's behind KDB. So you look at him as a full-back. Essentially, KDB's in a position where he should be constantly assisting, but through Trent, they've got a hell of a player there.
Yeah.
I mean, you were talking about the front 3 getting injured, but really I think they'd miss someone like him more in a way, because you can put other top players into those positions that Liverpool do have in reserve, and they'll still just be there, be able to tap the ball into the back of the net if Trent's putting the ball in the right places, as you've seen him do many times for Liverpool's goals this season.
It'll be interesting to see if his position changes over the years, because sometimes you see it with full-backs when they're young, and Bale is a good example of somebody who bombs forward a lot and then eventually shifts towards more of a wing role. And he has played once or twice, I think, this season in that right wing role when sort of late in the game. It would be interesting to see long term if he transitions to being someone. I mean, at this point, he's not going to.
No, I don't think he will under Klopp. And was it 2024? It looks like Klopp will be at Liverpool until I think he'll. The way Klopp's team is playing, the way it's all set up, because there's such an attacking masterclass, he's playing like almost like a right forward. It's like they've got 5 up front with him and Robertson joining the other 3, and he's not as required to be great at defending. He's not a great defender in that regard. So he's not required to do that. Yeah. It's all about the attacking bit. So when someone else comes in instead of Klopp, who sort of rejigs the formation, works it slightly differently, I think that's when you'll see him become either a centre mid or almost like a right winger in that regard.
Yeah. Well, also Klopp's basically admitted in signing this new contract that he's setting up a succession plan for when he does come to leave Liverpool. They want to build on this now. They don't want a situation where when Klopp leaves, they then have to start again.
It'll avoid, like what happened to United.
Yeah, so I reckon that whatever happens, this is the start of what could be a dynasty at Liverpool.
It's what they always hope, though, isn't it? I mean, people always make these plans, they always make these assumptions, but I do think that Klopp is a very unique manager. And I think we've talked about how their intensity in a lot of these matches hasn't gone down, and how, Sam mentioned he thought it might with the long seasons that players are having. But he's clearly someone who is very, very, very good, not just inspiring his players, but setting them up tactically and rotating in the right way to keep people motivated, which is not a thing that most managers can do, certainly at the top level.
You say he's unique, but I agree he is, and he's. But I think there's a lot of pretenders that are similar to him out there.
Oh yeah, pretenders.
There's a lot of clubs that have gone after managers just like him, who are just like him.
Huddersfield.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, being one of them, there's a lot of that German. But the guy at Southampton as well, I think he's kind of similar. He comes across in a similar way to me.
I'm quite impressed with how they've bounced back, to be fair.
Yeah. Like Danny Ings is like one of the top scorers in the league.
Yeah.
How did he get 12 goals? Like, when did that happen?
He scores like one a game every
And
other
I noticed
week,
that guy who's top of our fantasy league has got him up front.
Oh, right, okay.
So we were talking about Danny Ings when James was on the podcast as one of our guests, and I was like, he can't continue to score, and he did blank that week, and then he's scored every game since.
It's just
he's Ings.
I couldn't put him in.
Awful.
Oh God.
Moving swiftly on.
Yeah, leave that in.
What about the top four? I mean, will that kind of be the 2020 title race for the media then, in terms of trying to figure out and?
I think that fourth spot could be a bit of an interesting point, and purely based on the fact that none of those three teams really that are gunning for it can win on a consistent basis.
Who you count as the three teams there? Wolves, is that one of the three?
Shut up. Chelsea, United and Tottenham.
Right, okay.
I think those two have got too much in there.
Wolves could easily get in there. There's only one
I
point.
don't see why not. Yeah, they've got Adama Traore.
So they do. Yeah. I think they've just got a little bit too much for Wolves. Wolves have been resurgent. I think tie that in with maybe the Europa finishing. I don't know. But I think it's going to be between those three. That will be reasonably interesting unless one team actually puts together a run of form and runs away from the others. I think the most interesting bit is either where Arsenal are going to finish, and I think that's just genuinely interesting. What are they 6-8 points off relegation?
5 or 6 points, I think. 5 points off Villa.
God, yeah.
Yeah, 6 points off to 18th.
I think the relegation scrap will be the most interesting because
it's nice to see Watford pulling out of it. Like I said, they would. 2 wins in the last 3 games.
Doesn't mean they're out of it, Dave.
Emerging, thrashing Villa,
3-0.
They just pop their head up through the quicksand with just one last breath.
Why does no one level on Villa but everyone picks on Watford?
Villa are absolute freefall. I mean, their form is just completely dire. I think I put Matt Target in thinking, they've got some clean sheet potential there. He's getting some points. He goes up for set pieces, but I've thrown him out now because I'm fed up with how terrible they are.
I think it's just because they're newly promoted in a way, and they are a big club, and no one really dislikes them that much, other than Birmingham City fans.
Well, it's hard to do when you come up and you completely change your team. We saw it with Fulham last season. It's very difficult to get a solid set. And you look at what happened with Sheffield United. They didn't spend a lot of money, but they've kept the same group of players. Yeah. They've kept the same style that they're playing, and they've actually adapted quite well to the Premier League. I mean, they're 8th at this point, which is absurd. Madness. I think yesterday against City was their first time they've lost away from home this season.
Yeah, they were quite unlucky as well. They gave it a real go, didn't they?
Yeah.
They had that goal ruled out, didn't they? VAR killed it.
Yeah.
But they made a good job of that match against City in fairly uneven encounter, you would say, between the two teams. Yeah.
What about? Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think any of the bottom 7 at the moment, Norwich, Watford, Villa, West Ham, Bournemouth, Southampton and Brighton, could be ripe for a bloody nose there.
I think I'd also toss in Newcastle towards that. Yeah, we're 11th at the moment. We had a nice little run of form, but we've definitely got the potential to nosedive. We've got it in us. I believe
you'll be all right though, because I think there's poorer teams down there. Well, I think Bournemouth are going to definitely end up getting sucked into it. West Ham, who knows what? I can't see how David Moyes is going to work out there. I really don't see him walking into the dressing room and them all going, "Oh yeah, this is the new frontier."
I actually disagree here.
Difference, do you?
I mean, I think he's better than Pellegrini. I think that certainly within that job and within the confines that he's going to have, I don't think he's necessarily going to definitely keep them up. but I just think they could have done a lot worse. I felt like he was poorly treated before at West Ham.
Yeah.
I thought
It probably has been a few times, but
Yeah.
this is
like
same as going back to.
whenever West Ham fans complain about the style of football and stuff, it's like, all right, okay, there you go. Take Pellegrini, you're terrible. Right, go back to Moyes. Whenever fans complain about it, it's always like, you don't want that. You want to win. That's what you want. And
Was like West Ham under Moyes the first time round so memorable though?
it wasn't memorable, but we kept him up when they looked like they might go down.
Right.
And he did quite a good job of that. He wasn't amazing, but I mean, he had 6 months or so to do it. It's not exactly like you have loads of time to turn him around. And he had a plan to do various bits with them and to improve the facilities and to have a bit more saver transfers. And instead, they just went, off you go. We'll get Pellegrini in. Here's 100 million. And they haven't improved. They've now got loads of dead weight in that team.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a job fixing it. And they're one of those teams that if they go down, they could be in a lot of trouble because, their finances and stuff. It's one of those situations where they could easily have a massive wage bill in a league where you don't want it. So Moyes, I think he's got a big job there, but
You've made a good case for him there.
Yeah, I think for me, I would rather be Moyes going into the West Ham job than Arteta going into that Arsenal job. Because Arsenal are such a mess. I just think the whole squad, I mean, other than Aubameyang, that whole team, awful.
Yeah, Martinelli looks like one for the future.
Yeah, he's a kid, I mean.
But when we put out one of the tweets for the last show, it covered my claiming that Tammy Abraham is a championship striker. And a lot of people disagreed with me. But he didn't score 2 of the matches over Christmas, scored against Arsenal, who are championship form.
You're really stretching this definition
Therefore,
now.
corroborating my point and making it.
Well, they are
officially
there
gospel.
amongst Burnley and Brighton and Southampton, who essentially classes. I'm not going to put Newcastle in there. I don't want to hurt your feelings.
Same goal difference as Brighton. Draw more than Watford. Oh, terrible.
I dropped Abraham. He cut him. I think that's who Calvin.
He hasn't been in great form lately.
No, I find him frustrating as well. I know he's going to score goals. Of course, he's going to score goals.
He's not been in great form since the 5th game of the season.
No,
I'm not listening to this slander. He's a great striker. He's having a great season.
Striker?
He is a great striker. I'm going to call him a great striker. No, within the FPL context. So, I think you could pick him up for 7 million at the start of the season.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a case of I could drop him, but am I going to get someone else of the similar sort of value who's going to consistently score as much for a team that's contending for the top 4?
Stick Danny Ings in there. He's got more goals.
But that's the thing. He's not scored consistently. He had that 7, and then he scored against Arsenal, Championship. He hadn't scored for 4 matches before that.
He has had a bad run.
Scored against Villa,
I'll give you
Championship
that.
level. Didn't score 2 before that. Scored against Palace and Watford. Yeah, he's just not consistent.
The thing, I think it's quite difficult for especially a young striker like that to be consistently scoring goals every week, because if they do, then what happens is every team just closes them out and closes the striker out, and then they rely on what the team is do. They fall back on those players that kind of play behind the strikers. I mean, you even see it with Kane, don't you? It's there's games where he can get closed out, but
he's more of a support striker than Kane, who is the centerpiece, who is like the man who takes the penalties, who wants the ball, who's always there. Whereas Abraham is no, but it's a different sort of role. Like Abraham is supporting the wingers a lot of the time, and he's trying to play him off. He's an unselfish striker, and you saw that a bit when Pulisic was in great form, where Pulisic was there smashing every shot he got, whereas Abraham was always trying to think about how he could lay off people.
It's funny. I'm just looking at Pulisic now and his stats, because he's another one.
I cut him as well.
Oh, mate. Because the week I didn't qualify for the league was the last match I had him, and I'd said I was going to cut him after that match, and he did nothing again.
Yeah.
So we scored that 3 against Burnley. Next match, scored against Watford. Next match, scored against Palace. He's looking like the American Messi. You're like, here we go. This is the poster boy to make soccer the main sport in the US. And then he's done literally nothing since.
When I watch those games, he just reminded me of that wanky you play with at five-a-side football who shoots every single time he gets the ball. And it's kind of like, well, that can't last.
Don't talk about something like that.
No, but the player who's a bit younger, who's a bit nippy, and he's always shooting, and he's never laying off other people. And it's kind of like, well, at some point that's going to get old, because you can't. His XG was lower than it should have been. He was scoring way more than he should have been scoring, and it was always going to blow out eventually. And I'm kind of glad that it happened quite quickly, because it was inflated. Was that point still?
He's not quite the new Hazard, is he?
No,
which is what they
definitely
wanted
not.
him to be. So yeah, I chopped him out, but I put Zaha in, expecting him to do something, and
I did the same.
Did you?
Yeah.
But I did it through gritted teeth because whenever I put Zaha in, I'm always a bit like, oh, I just know he's going to let me down.
I was quite glad he did badly though, because I put him in and then I didn't save my team with him in the actual lineup, right? So he was my third sub, and that was for the Boxing Day fixtures. Yeah. And I was kicking myself. I was like, for God's sake, I need to remember to do it for the next game. Did exactly the same thing for this weekend. So it was my third sub again. Neither time did he get any points. So I was like, oh,
no, they drew 1-1 with Southampton. I was thinking, and he didn't get any points, did he?
Yeah, he did crap. I think it's 2 points.
Yeah, 2 points. So
he's.
But they have got Palace have got a favourable couple of fixtures coming up. I'm sure they have.
Yeah, it's Norwich there, isn't it?
Yeah, Norwich, and then following that, they also have
Arsenal at home. Which
Easy.
Is, yeah, exactly. There's goals there.
So maybe I'll leave him in for a bit.
What do you guys make of Arteta then? What do you make of his chances?
How can you make anything of him yet, really? Other than the fact he's sat next to Pep for so long.
What about Arsenal? What do you make of their...
They've just got no backbone, have they? They haven't got any real quality building out from the back. Surely that's the thing. You can see they've got talented forwards, they've got talented strikers, but there's just a real lack of... It's all just mushy, isn't it, in midfield and defence?
Yeah, it's like a soggy wet tissue.
It's a few terrible transfer windows just all conglomerating into that wet tissue mess, basically.
Yeah, it's like when they are the footballing example of that sloppy wet handshake you get off someone that makes you instantly dislike them and not trust them.
What an analogy. All right, so the other new manager, I don't think we've talked about him yet, is Ancelotti at Everton. Another job I wouldn't have particularly envied taking, to be honest, because Everton, again, don't look particularly strong, but he's done all right.
It's the Ancelotti and Duncan Ferguson duo we thought we'd never see in football.
I think that, Everton have got a decent team. They had a decent defence. I don't think Pickford's a particularly great goalkeeper, but he'll do. A bit of talent going forward. Any team with Richarlison in is good going forward. And I don't know the answer to this, and maybe you my learned colleagues will know. But Bernard, has he been playing much? Has he been playing well?
He's been playing, but he's basically an anonymous player.
He's so small, so small. Like when he stood next to Calvert-Lewin, it's like Valbuena stood next to Ibrahimovic. He's tiny. You can't be any good if you're that small when you're playing against grown men.
Nah, Ryan Fraser managed it. I remember watching against Huddersfield last season in person. I was like, I cannot believe this person.
But Fraser's bulked sideways, isn't he? He's like a perfect square. But he looks like he's shrunk. Like you've lost the perspective. You see him in a picture and you're like, oh, is he really far away?
I watched a film on Netflix last night called Downsizing, where they shrink people to save the planet, and I'm like, maybe Bernard's the first stage of that.
Is that Matt Damon? That
yeah. It's all right. Bad ending.
All right.
But yeah, I think they'll do well. I think they've got, any team with Yaramina in for however long I keep in my team is good. But I think, we thought they'd do well at the start of the season.
Yeah.
He's come in at a good time as well. I think they've got a couple of tricky fixtures now.
They've got Man City on New Year's Day. But then after that...
Yeah, it's that
Brighton,
home run of
West Ham, Newcastle.
Lots of winnable fixtures there.
Yeah.
So I think he's got some potential to bounce them up into the top sort of 8, and then once you're in that mess...
Yeah, I mean, I can't really remember what Ancelotti was like as a manager.
He's decent. I thought he was harshly treated at Napoli. I think they're the only team to beat Liverpool this season.
Oh, insanely harshly treated, yeah.
And then they got sacked him for what, Gattuso?
That's
Italian.
It's just Italian, mate. It's just Italian.
I can't even fathom that decision, honestly. I think he's a good manager. I mean, he's one of those players, managers, I think I remember, I can't remember who it was at Real Madrid, said that he's quite good at like talking to players and getting them sort of motivated in like a soft way. He's not one of those managers who's going to yell at you. He's one of those put your arm around his shoulder and try and deal with it that way. I've always quite liked him. He's not, Klopp level or Guardiola level, but for Everton, that's a good signing.
Exactly. I mean, those lads must be sat there in the dressing room. There's quite a lot of young players looking. That's Carlo Ancelotti there.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same at Spurs now. You've almost got these like figurehead managers where you've got Mourinho in charge, but they've got a team underneath them who do all the hard work essentially.
Yeah.
And you've got, David Moyes at West Ham. But I quite like these little inspirational managers, if you like. That
I just don't know whether I can't remember him having a sort of a particular style of play that was that was unique, or maybe that's just because
he was brilliant with Milan. But I think the thing with managers when they've had great success is there's always a point where it's kind of downhill. It's hard to stay motivated when you've been so successful. You've won it all with different teams.
I can't remember what it was like at Chelsea, whether he's, whether our mind is actually twisted, and there's very few managers who have a unique style of football, and everyone else just does it the normal way. And he just by pure logic and numbers and chance fits into the more normal football 4-2-3-1. Score more goals than the opposition.
Yeah,
game of two halves.
All the cliches. That's all you need, really. So there's a lot of potential for some changes. Then a bit of a changing festive period with some managers. It should be an exciting second half of the season, you'd hope. Moving on then to game week 21, the game week at hand, the New Year's Day game week. I think there's 9 games in one day, and I think Sheffield United, Liverpool. Might be the other way around. Liverpool, Sheffield United on New Year's 2nd of January. So lots and lots of football to look forward to midweek. The big news actually is we can now use our second wildcard if we wanted to. So we can rip our teams up. I'm not sure if you guys are going to be straight on that. I almost did it the other day.
Did you?
Yeah.
What?
Well, because I made 2 subs and I was like, oh God, why have I still got 2 Newcastle players in my team? And I was like, I need to make more subs, but I'm not going to do it because I need to wait. I need to just calm down. My team isn't in a state, but at the same time, there are lots of changes I want to make.
You see, it's amazing how this game works, isn't it? Because like 3 weeks ago, you were going, I'm really happy with my team.
Yeah, he was changing the reserve goalkeeper out, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was
So,
just like,
I could pinpoint, I think, where... I was looking the other day at how my players have performed and who's gone down in form. Maddison is a good barometer for my team at this point. Like the last 4 games, he's not really done anything. And I was looking at potentially dropping him. But if you look at the fixtures, you can kind of see how it's happened. He didn't start the game this game week just gone. Then I think they played Man City and Liverpool in the 2 games before that. He was basically neutered because he spent the entire game chasing fullbacks. And, you're not going to do particularly well.
Yeah, because he played out on the left, didn't he?
Against Liverpool, yeah. And, against Man City, I don't think he was effective. So I think you can forgive that sort of thing. I think with 3 Leicester players, my team was always going to take a little bit of a hit. But I need him to turn it around now. So I haven't dropped him yet, but I have dropped some other players. Let's see. I've got Martial in. I regretted dropping him. I kept seeing him get points for you, and I just thought, for God's sake, why did I drop him?
I was so close to dropping him the weekend or the match day when he got 15 points.
Yeah.
But I didn't know why I was dropping him. Well, I did because I just wanted to change him because I thought I was getting annoyed with him as a United fan. I took the emotion out of it and realised I didn't have any money to buy anyone else of a similar calibre, so I kept him in.
Yeah, I managed to toss him in, got rid of Zaha because I had a bit of money to spare from sacrificing a player somewhere. I got Cabasalian because Watford have been a bit better. He's my dirt cheap defender.
Is that based on the fact that he was tweeting goal the other day as well?
No, I didn't see that actually. That's good though. I like friend of goals in my team. But it means I've got 2 Newcastle players rotting on my bench because I just can't get rid of him yet. Shelby's done nothing since I put him in. Willems, Newcastle have been crap in defence lately, even if he was all right to start with. The reason I wanted to do my wild card, I remember now, is because I wanted to get Alexander-Arnold in, and I couldn't do it without sacrificing points in midfield and trying to wiggle things around.
I thought you had him. Have you never had him?
I dropped him before the Club World Cup because I was like, I don't really want to have 2 Liverpool players going into this game week. And then, for God's sake, since then he's been insanely good. He must have got so many points against Leicester. He was just phenomenal.
I know.
And then I think he got 8 points yesterday against Wolves. So, he's a player who's in form, but they have a tricky run of fixtures anyway. I think they must have Man United again soon.
I've actually got Van Dijk in my defence, and I reckon I could swap him out for Trent. I mean, because Van Dijk, I don't know why I've got Van Dijk, because he's essentially price heavy, and someone like Trent would get you more points.
Maybe, but I think there's an argument to be made that he hasn't scored in a while, and eventually he's going to start knocking in those headers.
See, I made that argument, that flawed argument with Harry Maguire for about 8 weeks.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, Van Dijk's getting you clean sheets, whereas Maguire isn't. So
yeah, but I just wanted to get a goal. I wanted to say I owned him when he scored.
Have you scored from... he's not scored this season, has he?
No, because United have got this really weird... I think I blame Southgate, if I'm honest.
The love train.
Yeah, but they don't do that. They do that a little bit and just do it badly because Fred's usually taking the corner. Or they just loft it like Frank Lampard used to take his corners, and just chip it with a load of backspin towards the far post, where Maguire will probably 50% of the time nod it back across goal, and then they just clear it. Yeah. Well, if you're that accurate at hitting his head, why Why don't you do it near the goal so he can? And then Harry, don't head it back across the goal to another player. Just pretend that player is in the top corner and do that.
But it's actually quite hard to head a ball forcefully that's got backspin on it that's been floated over as well,
as
isn't
you're
it?
jumping and leaning back.
Because it's hard to judge the flight of the ball when it's got that.
The listeners, me and Dave used to play a bit
Yeah,
when we were
we
younger,
just-
so
we know
we know
this.
these kind of things.
They're doing it all wrong.
Yeah.
You need to get in touch with Ollie and tell him, I think.
Yeah, I reckon Trent for Van Dijk would be a good transfer.
Yeah.
It's not one I've made yet, but
Thinking about it.
yeah, everyone's
He's rocketing up in price though, is Trent. I think he
Yeah.
might be 7.5 at this point.
7.5.
He's 7.4 yesterday, and I just thought after that game, more people are going to put him in.
Oh,
so.
Jesus. I saw him at 7.3 and thought, I'll think about that in a couple of weeks.
So I actually think now it's getting to the point where he is inflated, considering the run they've got. And I think Van Dijk would probably be a little bit more appealing for me, just because I just think eventually he's going to score a few noggins in there. But Maguire, by the way, I completely forgot to mention this. He was atrocious for that goal that Newcastle scored. Was it Matty Longstaff who scored the goal on Boxing Day? I just couldn't believe that is I don't know how much he costs now, but it's up above 50 million.
Was it not 80 million?
Yeah,
75,
it was
something like that.
somewhere in that region between 50 and 100, something ludicrous. Do you think it's fair to say at this point he hasn't lived up to expectations? Or do you think that's unfair? As someone who watches United more often than I do.
Both. He looked really good against Burnley when it was there was a little bit of the Alamo towards the end and they were peppering the goal. And he showed that sort of leadership and digging in mentality, which I think is what we've craved. So yeah, he looked good in that, but we're 20 games in so far. So I think he hasn't clicked. I think it's not helped that Lindelof is not the same player he was last season. He just doesn't look anywhere near as capable. There was, I think it was maybe September-ish, Mourinho was on Sky and he was covering United match and he was talking about Lindelof. And he said, oh yeah, well, me and my coaches felt that he wasn't actually very good in the air. And then just as he said that, it cut to Lindelof warming up, misjudging a header, leaping up to head it, and then just misjudging his time, so it landed on the top of his head and went behind him.
Amazing.
So having him isn't great, and not having a great midfield in front of you hasn't helped. So he's done all right. A lot of money, but that's what you got to pay these days. So yeah, it's not my money either, so I'm not bothered.
I think it's difficult. Like, I think if you put Söyüncü in that United team in the same place, it'd be exactly the same. Really, I don't think it's particularly Harry Maguire's fault. I think it's probably just systematic of a lot of other problems around him.
So yeah,
it doesn't look like he's been phased by the transfer to Manchester United in a way. He still looks like a very similar player.
No,
to what he
and
was.
I'm hoping the more, if the team kicks on and he gets more captain opportunities, it will just sort of help him elevate his stature. But it's the game. The United's fortunes will completely change when they start playing Brandon Williams week in, week out.
Yeah,
he's class.
I did enjoy him against Burnley, but it was Burnley, so
yeah, but
low standards.
It's hard. It's our level, mate.
Who's the alternative? Is it Shaw and does Young play left back or?
He plays a bit of left back, bit of right back. I think he's played more left back this season because Wan-Bissaka's been in, and Shaw just comes on and looks like a. Oh dear! Like the guy in The Simpsons, he's running along the corridor. Going, don't chase me! I'm full of chocolate. That's what he was like.
Just like him, doesn't
That's
he?
what he was like after Boxing Day.
So, what changes have you guys made this game week? Have you made any?
I've not made any yet. I've got to juggle around my team. I've got 2 subs, so I'm going to make some form of change. I'm intrigued by the idea of a wild card and what I can do because I've put quite a bit of cash into my defence now, so I've got a few 5 million players in there when I normally just had like 4 and a bitters. So I may take Mina out just because they've got City. I might get rid of Toby finally because Tottenham aren't holding on to any form of clean sheet. In fact, I think that's probably what I'll do. But I want to sort of bring that down to early 4s if possible. Because I really like my midfield, which would be Martial, Mane, De Bruyne and Ali, and up front Kane and Vardy. So yeah, just one sub change.
We have similar midfields. I was just comparing and contrasting between the 3 of us. We all have De Bruyne. Actually, you don't have Mane, do you, Dave?
I don't have Mane now. No, I took him out before the Club World Cup. and then rejig the team a little bit.
Yeah,
based on hopefully trying to get a few Liverpool players back in after that.
You both have Ali. We both have Maddison.
Yeah,
there's a lot of cross referencing. I've just noticed you sneaking Kane in there.
Yeah, well, literally before
train.
we started recording, I was just having a little tinker, and I was like, oh, actually, because what I've been doing is, you might find this hard to believe, but like, I'd actually been doing my transfers and trying to save a bit of money by putting players in that were actually decent point scorers, like Kelly, for instance, but were cheap, and knocking out players that were ridiculously priced and not getting any points. So
that's sort of like the most basic transfer strategy you can think of.
Yeah, I know, but I think you underestimate me massively anyway. But it's so yeah, I had quite a bit of money left, so I could take Rashford out and I could put Kane in. So that was essentially the option there. But I might not stick with that, and I might look at how I could essentially put a high point scoring midfielder in there instead of Zaha and stick Rashford back in. Because I think, just looking at my midfield there, I really need like another
top big hitter.
level. Yeah, another big hitter.
Yeah.
Because
you don't have a Liverpool attacker there. That's surprising.
Well, that was it. It was Mane before. It's been Mane all season, but
none of us have any of us had Salah this season.
Yeah, first game week.
Oh, right, okay. So quickly,
got rid of him. Oh, actually, do you know what? It's probably about 4 or 5 games in I did it.
Mm.
He's a strange one, isn't he? He's not really like the player of last season as such. Like, he's still a danger, and every team that comes up against him know that they've got to mark him out of the match.
Yeah, I did it in game week 5.
But he's
had some
like
really
he's
big
like
weeks,
a decoy though, isn't he? In a way, in that Liverpool side, they just
Yeah.
like move the ball onto somebody else, or he just like puts it around the corner to Firmino. Or
I just trust Mane more in front of goal at the moment than Salah. You know, you got 1-on-1. I think for me, Mane's going to score that more often than Salah will. Salah's more liable to scuff it wide. He's still a top player, but I think Mane is the real threat in that team, certainly from an attacking point of view.
Yeah.
At this point, goal scoring point of view. But neither of them are the top scoring midfielders so far this season. That's De Bruyne, who all of us sensibly have.
De Bruyne, do you see that goal he scored where he's just like, again, it would just put it back in near post. I was like, oh, it looks like he's going to shoot across goal, just wangs it in near post. Absolutely. The guy's beautiful footballer, absolutely beautiful footballer. His finishing is just sensational. From outside the area, it looks like he's tapping it in from like the 6-yard box.
I'm trying to think who it was that he scored a goal like that against. I think it was when they smashed the team. It might have been Watford earlier in the season. And he's right towards the end of the game when they already scored like half a dozen goals. He's just when he's in form, there's few players who are as good to watch as him. And he's very much in form right now.
Do you think Ali will carry on now towards the end of the season? I look at him and I think, I don't know. I know he had a little when Mourinho took over. He was kind of.
Son was always the more appealing of the midfielders for me, but then he went and got red carded when he was captain.
So is Son back?
He's a nasty bastard of a player, isn't he?
He does get the occasional red card, doesn't he?
He's had 3 this year.
Has he had 3 or 2?
3 in 2019.
Yeah, top.
Last player to do that, I think, was Ben Thatcher.
One of them was really harsh, though. One of them was the one where, he did snap. Who was it like he got? The Everton player. Gomez.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a bad tackle. But I think that was rescinded, that red card, wasn't it? On appeal.
Was it?
Yeah.
But yes, maybe we should have had 4. Oh my lord. But I think Ali's he's expensive-ish.
Is Son back against Southampton, or has he still got one to go?
He's back after the FA Cup. Or he might be back for the FA Cup, but for FPL managers, he's back after the FA Cup.
Yeah, because I'd prefer him to Ali, if I'm totally honest. Despite the fact he's dirty.
He's back for Spurs v Liverpool, which is the late kickoff on the Saturday 11th. Should be a good game, actually. Quite looking forward to seeing that one. But yeah, no, he won't be against Southampton. So yeah, I'm going to stick with Kane for my Spurs player. While Sam is going to be doubling up.
You've got Kane?
Yeah,
I've got Kane, yeah.
I've tripled Spurs at the moment because I've got Alderweireld as well.
I was quite chuffed with my Kane pick, and I think they had the early kickoff in the match where was it Brighton on Boxing Day, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm getting loads of points here. And I looked at Sam's team, and he was getting double the amount of points because he captained him. I was like, for God's sake. So that was a bit naff, but it's a good pick at least. I'm quite happy with that. It's nice to get a pick that's worked out for once after a few weeks of dire transfers. It's a good change.
Yeah. So I think Kane, decent, getting back in the team now. I think he's been out of the FPL focus for a while.
He has, yeah. He's one of the ones you'd class as like a premium one. It's probably a bit like Aguero in that he hasn't had the season that he might have wanted to have. think he's-
Aguero's another one actually. Would people be looking to get him back in the team now?
Yeah, no, he's back,
Come straight back in, scoring straight away. So
one to consider, yeah.
He got a good rest against Wolves as well, didn't he?
He did, yeah, coming off the 12 minutes. Man, that must be annoying. Yeah, you'd think. I haven't looked at City's run, actually. I don't know. Let's have a look here. So they've got Everton, Villa, Palace, Sheffield United. Sheffield United again. So, yeah, they've got some winnable games in there, and then they've got a rock-hard run after that, but which is where their season could finally be killed off. Spurs, Leicester, Arsenal, United, Chelsea, Liverpool, in the space of 8 games.
Serious.
Yeah, so that'll be the make-or-break bit of the season. But, I mean, at that point, it could already be written off with pointless defeats against some of the other teams. We'll see. But Aguero is definitely one to watch, I think, in the coming weeks. I think on that note, we'll wrap up. Dave, Sam, thank you very much for joining us today. Listeners, you can get in touch by tweeting your fancy football thoughts with the hashtag UKFFS. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, follow on Spotify, or however you listen to podcasts on your favourite platform. Leave a review if you liked it, and if you didn't, what are you still doing here? Check out Goal for your daily dose of football news from the Premier League and around the world. Thanks for listening.